Document. Part 1. The asteroid mining station Delta 7 floated silently in the vast emptiness of space, its metallic surface glinting faintly under the distant light of a dying star. It was a lonely outpost, far from Earth, and even farther from any real sense of comfort. The people who worked there weren't adventurers or dreamers. They were practical folks trying to make a living in one of the harshest environments imaginable. Among them was Jason Cole, an engineer with a reputation for fixing things no one else could. Jason wasn't the kind of person who stood out in a crowd. He had short brown hair that always looked slightly messy, glasses perched on his nose, and a habit of tapping his fingers when he thought deeply. But what set him apart was his Minda, sharp, analytical tool, honed by years of solving problems others deemed impossible. Whether it was repairing a broken drill, or figuring out why a piece of alien tech refused to power up, Jason had a way of seeing solutions where others saw only frustration. On this particular day, Jason was crouched inside the cramped belly of a malfunctioning drone, his hands buried deep in wires and circuits. The drone had been sent out earlier to collect mineral samples from the asteroid field surrounding Delta 7. But something had gone wrong during the mission. Instead of returning with its payload, it had drifted aimlessly until the station's tractor beam brought it back. Now, it sat lifeless in the repair bay, waiting for Jason to breathe life into it again. "Still working on that thing," came a voice behind him. It was Laura Bennett, the station's head mechanic. She leaned casually against the doorway, her arms crossed over her chest. Her blonde hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and she wore a grease-streaked jumpsuit that looked like it hadn't been washed in days. "It's stubborn," Jason replied without looking up. His tone was calm, almost casual, but there was a hint of determination in his voice. "I think I've narrowed it down to a faulty relay, though. Give me another 10 minutes. Laura chuckled. "You said that 20 minutes ago. Well, maybe this time I mean it." Jason smiled faintly, his focus still fixed on the tangle of wires. "Besides, you're not exactly here to help, are you?" "Nope," Laura admitted with a shrug. "Just checking in. You know how Ryan gets when we fall behind schedule." Ryan Scott was the third member of their little team. Unlike Jason and Laura, whose specialties were rooted in physical repairs, Ryan lived and breathed software. If there was code to be written, data to be analyzed, or systems to be optimized, Ryan was the go-to guy. Right now, he was probably holed up in the control room, monitoring the station's sensors and muttering about efficiency. As if on cue, the intercom crackled too. "Life." "Hey Jason," Ryan's voice echoed through the repair bay. "Any progress on that drone? We're starting to get weird readings from outside." "Weird readings," Jason repeated, pausing mid-task. He pulled himself out of the drone and stood up, brushing dust off his gloves. "What kind of weird readings?" "I don't know yet," Ryan replied. There was a note of uncertainty in his voice, which was unusual for him. Normally, Ryan was confident to the point of arrogance, so hearing hesitation made Jason's stomach tighten. "It's coming from deep space beyond the asteroid belt. Something big is out there." Laura raised an eyebrow. "Big like asteroid collision big, or big like alien invasion big?" "Let's hope it's not the second option," Jason muttered, as he grabbed a tablet from a nearby workbench. He tapped a few commands, pulling up the sensor. Data Ryan had mentioned. Sure enough, there were strange energy signatures appearing on the edge of their detection range. They pulsed erratically like a heartbeat struggling to find its rhythm. Before anyone could say anything else, the lights flickered. For a moment, everything went silent, the hum of machinery, the gentle whir of ventilation fans, even the faint creak of metal expanding in the cold vacuum of space. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the silence ended. The lights returned, brighter than before, and a low rumble shook the station. "What the hell was that?" Laura demanded, gripping the doorframe for balance. Jason didn't answer. His eyes were glued to the tablet, where the energy readings had spiked dramatically. Whatever was out there wasn't just bake, was close. Too close. A sudden flash illuminated the windows lining the repair bay, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. When the glare faded, they turned toward the glass and froze. Hovering in the void beyond the station was a ship unlike anything they'd ever seen. Its sleek, black hull shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and its shape defied logic, as if it had been designed by minds operating on entirely different principles than human ones. Is that? Laura trailed off, unable to finish the question. Yeah, Jason whispered. That's definitely alien. For several long seconds, nobody moved. The ship loomed silently, its presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Then, without warning, a beam of light shot out from its underside, enveloping Delta 7 in a warm, golden glow. Jason felt a strange sensation wash over him, like static electricity tingling across his skin. Before he could react, the world around him dissolved into nothingness. When Jason opened his eyes again, he wasn't on Delta 7 anymore. He found himself standing in a vast chamber filled with glowing panels and floating holograms. The air smelled faintly of ozone, and the temperature was cooler than he expected. Beside him, Laura and Ryan looked equally disoriented, their faces pale with shock. Standing at the center of the room was a figure unlike any they'd ever encountered. Towering nearly 8 feet tall, it had smooth, iridescent skin that shifted colors with every movement. Its eyes glowed with an inner light, and its voice, when it spoke, resonated like rolling thunder. "Welcome," the creature said, its words somehow translating themselves into perfect English. "We are the Valeth." Jason swallowed hard, his mind racing to process what was happening. Aliens. Real, actual aliens. And they were talking to him. Despite the fear gnawing at the edges of his thoughts, he forced himself to speak. Who are you?" he stammered. "What do you want?" The Valeth tilted its head, studying him with an expression that might have been curiosity or amusement. "We are a race of beings with powers beyond your comprehension," it replied. "But we face a challenge that even our strength cannot overcome. That is why we have come to you, to us." Laura blurted out, incredulous. "Why would you need us? You look like you can handle pretty much anything." The Valeth's gaze shifted to her, and for a brief moment, Jason thought he saw sadness in its luminous eyes. "Our power is great," it admitted, "but it is not infinite. Something threatens our existence, and we believe your ingenuity may hold the key to our survival." Jason exchanged a glance with Laura and Ryan. None of them knew what to say. This wasn't supposed to happen. Humans weren't ready for first contact, not like this. But as Jason looked at the alien towering above them, he realized they didn't have a choice. Whatever the Valeth wanted, whatever they needed, the fate of humanity might depend on how they responded. Taking a deep breath, Jason stepped forward. "Tell us what's going on," he said firmly, "and we'll see what we can do." The Valeth nodded slowly, as if satisfied by his response. "Very well," it said. "But know this, time is not on our side. Will you help us?" Jason hesitated, weighing the risks. Helping these aliens could save countless lives. Lives or doom humanity to destruction. Either way, there was no turning back now. "Yes," he said finally, "we'll help you." And with that decision, Jason, Laura, and Ryan embarked on a journey. None of them could have imagined a journey that would test their courage, their intelligence, and their very humanity. End of document. Document. Part 2. The air in the alien chamber felt heavy, almost electric, as Jason, Laura, and Ryan stood face to face with the towering Valeth. The creature's glowing eyes seemed to pierce through them, reading their thoughts before they could even form words. For a moment, none of them spoke. The enormity of what was happening weighed down on them like an invisible force. This wasn't just about Delta 7 anymore. This was bigger than humanity itself. Finally, Commander Zoratha, named the Valeth, had given itself broke the silence. You must understand, it began, its deep voice reverberating through the room. Our people have existed for millennia. We possess abilities that your kind might consider extraordinary. It raised one shimmering hand, and a nearby console levitated into the air, spinning slowly, as if caught in an invisible current. Yet even such power has its limits. Jason watched the floating console with wide eyes, but quickly forced himself to focus. If you're so powerful, he asked cautiously, why do you need us? What can 3 humans possibly do that you can't? Zorath lowered the console gently back onto the floor. Its expression, if it could be called, that shifted, subtly, hinting at frustration, or perhaps desperation. Our civilization depends on a network of energy conduits powered by Zytherium crystals. These conduits sustain our cities, our technology, and even parts of our biology. But recently, the crystals have begun destabilizing. Entire regions of our empire are falling into chaos. Laura frowned, leaning slightly forward. Destabilizing how? Are they breaking apart? Running out of juice? It is more complex than that, Zorath replied. The crystals are not merely depleting, they are unraveling. Something is causing them to lose cohesion, spreading instability across the network. If this continues, our homeworld will collapse. Ryan, who had been unusually quiet until now, finally spoke up. Hold on a second, he said, adjusting his glasses nervously. Are you saying these crystals are alive? Like, sentient or something? They are not alive in the way you understand life, Zorath explained. But they are intricate systems, finely balanced between matter and energy. Their disruption threatens everything we hold dear. Jason rubbed the back of his neck, trying to process all of this. Okay, let me get this straight. Your entire society runs on these crystals, and they're falling apart. And you think we humans can fix them? Yes, Zorath said simply. Your species excels at understanding machines, at finding solutions where others see only problems. You build, adapt, and innovate in ways that elude us. That is why we sought you out. Laura crossed her arms, clearly skeptical. So, you just happened to pick us. Out of all the humans in the galaxy, you chose 3 random engineers from a mining station. Not random, Zorath corrected. We observed your work. Your ingenuity impressed us. When our sensors detected the anomaly aboard your drone, we knew you were capable of addressing challenges beyond your usual scope. Jason glanced at Laura, then at Ryan, both of whom looked equally baffled. He couldn't deny that the situation was surreal, but also strangely compelling. Here was an opportunity to prove humanity's worth on a cosmic scale. Still, there was no denying the risks involved. What happens if we say no? Jason asked carefully. If we refuse to help, Zorath hesitated, and for the first time, its composure faltered. Then we face extinction. And if our empire falls, the shockwaves will ripple across the stars. No world will be spared, not even yours. That statement hit hard. Jason felt a chill run down his spine. The implications were clear. Helping the Valith wasn't just about altruism. It was about survival. Turning away would mean leaving Earth vulnerable to whatever fallout followed the aliens' demise. We'll need details, Jason said, after a long pause. Everything you know about these crystals, the conduits, and what's causing the problem. And we'll need access to your tech too. Study it, test it, figure out what's going wrong. Zorath nodded approvingly. As you wish. I will provide whatever resources you require. However, time is critical. The accelerates with each passing cycle. Cycle, Ryan echoed. What does that mean? Hours, days? It means cycles, Zorath replied cryptically. Time flows differently here than on your world. Suffice it to say, you must act swiftly. Laura sighed, running a hand through her hair. Great. No pressure, right? Despite the gravity of the situation, Jason managed a small smile. Well, when you put it that way. Back aboard Delta 7, the team gathered in the control room to discuss their next steps. The Valith had transported them back temporarily, giving them time to prepare before heading to the alien homeworld. Jason paced back and forth, his mind racing with possibilities. "All right," he said, stopping abruptly and turning to face the others. "Here's the plan. We gather every scrap of data we can find on Cytherium crystals and the Valith's energy network. Ryan, you dig into any records they've shared with us. Look for patterns, anomalies, anything that might explain why the crystals are destabilizing." Ryan nodded, already typing furiously on his tablet. "Got it. But don't expect miracles. Their tech is way beyond anything I've ever seen." "I'll handle the physical side of things," Laura chimed in. "If we're dealing with actual hardware conduits, generators, whatever, I'll make sure we understand how they work. Maybe I can rig something up if we need a quick fix. And I'll coordinate with Zorath," Jason added. "Hewar, it seems, willing to cooperate. But we can't take anything for granted. We need to stay sharp." For the next several hours, the trio worked tirelessly. Ryan scoured the alien data files, piecing together fragments of information about the crystal's composition and function. Laura dismantled spare parts scavenged from Delta 7's storage, experimenting with makeshift tools that might interface with Valith technology. Meanwhile, Jason communicated with Zorath via a holographic link, asking questions and sharing updates. As night fell, what passed for night in the endless void of space, Jason found himself staring out the window at the Valith ship still hovering nearby. Its sleek silhouette glowed faintly against the backdrop of stars, a constant reminder of the responsibility weighing on his shoulders. "You okay?" Laura's voice interrupted his thoughts. She stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Figured you could use a break." Jason accepted the cup gratefully. "Thanks. Just thinking." "About what?" she asked, leaning against the wall. "Everything," he admitted. "This whole thing feels unreal. A week ago, we were fixing busted drones and arguing over lunch menus. Now we're supposed to save an alien civilization." Laura smirked. "Yeah, talk about a career change. But hey, if anyone can pull it off, it's us, right?" Jason chuckled softly. "Let's hope so. Because if we screw this up..." He trailed off, letting the thought hang in the air. They sipped their coffee in silence for a while, watching the alien ship shimmer in the distance. Finally, Laura broke the quiet. "You really think they're telling the truth about needing our help, I mean?" Jason hesitated before answering. "I think so. They could have blasted us out of existence if they wanted to. Instead, they came to us. That counts for something. But what if there's more to it?" Laura pressed. "What if this is some kind of trap? Or worse, what if helping them puts Earth in danger?" Jason exhaled slowly. "I don't know. All I can do is trust my instincts and hope they're enough." By morning, the team had compiled as much information as they could. They packed their gear, double-checked their equipment, and prepared to leave Delta 7 behind, at least for now. As they stepped onto the teleportation platform provided by the Valith, Jason took one last look at the station. It wasn't much, but it had been home. Now, it felt like a distant memory. "Ready?" Laura asked, gripping her toolkit tightly. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jason replied. With a flash of light, they vanished, reappearing moments later aboard the Valith vessel. The transition was seamless, yet disorienting. Around them, the alien ship hummed with energy, its walls pulsating faintly, as if alive. Zorath awaited them at the end of a long corridor, flanked by 2 smaller Valith, who radiated an aura of authority. "Welcome aboard," Zorath said. "We depart for the homeworld immediately. Prepare yourselves." As the ship surged forward, hurtling through the depths of space, Jason felt a mix of excitement and dread. He didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. End of document. Document. Part 3. The journey to the Valeth homeworld felt both endless and fleeting. Time aboard the alien ship didn't follow the rules Jason, Laura, and Ryan were used to. There were no clocks, no windows to mark the passage of hours or days. Instead, the walls of the ship pulsed faintly, with shifting colors, as if alive, creating an eerie sense of motion without direction. Conversations between the three humans were sparse. Each was lost in their own thoughts, trying to process the enormity of what they'd agreed to do. Jason spent most of his time poring over the data Zoreth had provided. The information was overwhelming, pages upon pages of technical schematics, energy matrices, and equations that seemed to defy logic. It wasn't just advanced technology. It was alien thinking, a completely different way of approaching problems. Yet, amidst the chaos of symbols and diagrams, Jason began to notice patterns, subtle repetitions, recurring sequences that hinted at structure within the madness. He jotted down notes furiously, determined to find something tangible he could work with. Laura, on the other hand, focused on the physical side of things. She had managed to convince Zoreth to let her examine a damaged conduit, prototype 1, of many salvaged from regions where the crystals had already destabilized. The device was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Smooth, metallic surfaces that shimmered like liquid, yet cool to the touch. When she tried to open it, the material resisted her tools, almost as if it were alive and unwilling to be tampered with. Frustrated but undeterred, she sketched its design meticulously, noting every detail she could see or feel. Ryan, meanwhile, worked tirelessly at a makeshift workstation set up by the Valeth. His tablet buzzed with streams of encrypted signals. Embedded in the crystal matrix, a discovery that sent shivers down his spine. "This isn't natural," he muttered under his breath, tapping furiously at the screen. "Someone or something is deliberately messing with these crystals. It's sabotage." When Jason heard this, he immediately called for a meeting. They gathered in a small chamber, allocated to them by Zoreth, the walls glowing softly around them. "Are you sure?" Jason asked, leaning forward. "Sabotage? How?" Ryan nodded grimly. "I traced the interference back to specific patterns in the crystal lattice. Whoever did this knew exactly how to destabilize the system without leaving obvious traces. It's subtle, precise, and intentional." Laura frowned, crossing her arms. "But why would anyone want to destroy their own power source? That doesn't make sense." "Maybe it's not about destruction," Jason suggested thoughtfully. "Maybe it's about control. If someone can manipulate the crystals, they could hold the entire empire hostage." Ryan shrugged. "Or maybe they're trying to send a message to scare the Valeth into submission." Whatever the motive, the implications were dire. If the destabilization wasn't random, but deliberate, then solving the problem wouldn't just require fixing the crystals. It would mean uncovering who or what was behind the sabotage, and that added layers of complexity none of them had anticipated. As the ship approached the Valeth homeworld, Commander Zoreth summoned the team to the observation deck. Through a wide viewport, they caught their first glimpse of the planet below. It was breathtaking, an orb of shimmering blues and silvers, dotted with floating cities suspended mid-air by massive beams of light. Towering spires rose from the surface, connected by bridges of pure energy. Rivers of golden light flowed across the landscape, feeding into colossal structures that pulsed rhythmically, like living hearts. "It's beautiful," Laura whispered, her voice filled with awe. "And terrifying," Ryan added quietly. "How are we supposed to fix something so?" Big Zorath stood nearby, watching their reactions carefully. "This is my world," it said, pride evident in its resonant voice. Once vibrant and thriving, now shadows creep across its surface. Entire districts have fallen dark. Billions of lives hang in the balance. Jason turned to face the alien. "Leader, you mentioned earlier that some of your people oppose working with us. Can you tell us more about them?" Zoreth hesitated. its luminous eyes dimming slightly. There are factions among us who believe allying with humans weakens our species. They argue that relying on outsiders diminishes our greatness. Some even claim that your presence here invites disaster. So, not everyone's happy we're here, Laura summarized bluntly. No, Zorath confirmed, and their resistance grows stronger with each passing cycle. Be cautious, humans. Not all will welcome you warmly. The warning weighed heavily on the group as they prepared to disembark. When the ship finally landed, they stepped onto a platform overlooking a sprawling city bathed in twilight hues. The air smelled faintly of ozone, and the ground beneath their feet hummed with latent energy. Around them, Valeth citizens moved gracefully, their forms shimmering with an ethereal glow. Most ignored the newcomers, though a few cast curious glances their way. A guide led them through the streets toward a central hub where the main conduit network was located. Along the way, signs of decay became increasingly apparent. Buildings flickered in and out of existence, their foundations weakened by failing energy supplies. Streets once bustling with activity now lay eerily empty, littered with debris. In one district, a massive tower collapsed before their eyes, dissolving into a cloud of glittering dust. "This is bad," Laura murmured, gripping her toolkit tightly. "Really bad. We need to move fast," Jason agreed, his jaw clenched. Every second counts. At the hub, they were granted access to a secure lab, stocked with tools and equipment tailored to human use. An accommodation Jason suspected Zorath had arranged personally. As they unpacked their gear and began setting up, tension hung thick. In the air, the stakes were higher than ever, and failure wasn't an option. But as night fell or whatever passed for night on this alien world, the team couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. Shadows flitted at the edges of their vision, disappearing when they turned to look. Whispers echoed faintly in the corridors outside, too soft to decipher, but unmistakably hostile. Someone or something was watching them. By the third day, the strain began to show. Jason snapped at Ryan during a heated argument about encryption protocols, while Laura accidentally shattered a piece of delicate alien tech in frustration. Tempers frayed, sleep grew scarce, and paranoia crept in. Were the rebels responsible for the sabotage targeting them too, or was it simply the pressure of knowing billions of lives depended on their success? One evening, as Jason reviewed his notes late into the night, he noticed something odd. A faint vibration ran through the floor, rhythmic and deliberate. Following the sound, he discovered a hidden panel in the wall, partially concealed by a holographic display. Inside, he found a small device emitting a pulsating signal, one that matched the interference Ryan had detected earlier. "Guys," he called urgently, holding up the device. "I think I know why the crystals are destabilizing." Laura and Ryan rushed over, their exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "What is it?" Ryan asked, peering at the object. "It's a disruptor," Jason explained. "Whoever planted this wanted to accelerate the destabilization process. But here's the thing, it's not Valeth tech." Ryan's eyes widened. "Not Valeth? Then whose is it?" Jason shook his head grimly. "I don't know. But whoever built this knows enough about the crystals to exploit their weaknesses. This isn't just sabotage, it's war." The realization hit them like a punch to the gut. They weren't dealing with internal dissent or simple mechanical failure. Something far more sinister was at play, and they were right in the middle of it. As dawn broke over the alien city, Jason stared out the window at the crumbling skyline. Somewhere out there, enemies lurked, both visible and unseen. Their mission had shifted from repair to survival. Failure meant doom not only for the Valeth, but for humanity as well. Taking a deep breath, Jason turned back to his team. "We've got work to do," he said firmly. "Let's figure this out." And with renewed determination, they dove back into the task at hand, unaware of the dangers lurking just beyond the horizon. End of document. Document, Part 4. The lab was quiet, except for the soft hum of alien equipment and the occasional clink of tools as Jason, Laura, and Ryan worked tirelessly. The discovery of the disruptor device had changed everything. It wasn't just a technical problem anymore, it was a mystery wrapped in danger. Someone had deliberately sabotaged the Valif's energy network, and whoever it was might still be watching them. Jason placed the disruptor on a workbench, examining it closely. The device was small, but intricate, with glowing circuits etched into its surface like veins. Its design was unlike anything human or Valif. It seemed to pulse faintly, almost alive. "This doesn't belong here," he muttered under his breath. "It's not their tech, and it's definitely not ours." Laura leaned over his shoulder, her brow furrowed. "If it's not Valith or human, then who built it? Another alien race?" "Maybe," Jason replied, turning the device over in his hands. "But why would another species go after the Valith like this? What do they have to gain?" Ryan tapped furiously at his tablet, analyzing the signal emitted by the disruptor. Whoever made this knew exactly what they were doing. "The signal matches the interference patterns I found in the crystals. This thing is designed to destabilize them from the inside out. So, we're dealing with someone smart," Laura said dryly. "Great. Just what we needed." Jason nodded grimly. "Smart and dangerous. We need to figure out how this works, and fast. If there are more devices like this hidden around the city, the entire system could collapse before we even get close to fixing it." While the team focused on the disruptor, Zorath arrived unexpectedly, accompanied by 2 silent Valith guards. Their presence filled the room with an air of tension, their glowing eyes scanning every corner as if searching for threats. Zorath's expression calm, but guarded, spoke volumes about the gravity of the situation. "I trust you've made progress," Zorath said, its voice resonating through the chamber. "We've found something," Jason replied cautiously. He held up the disruptor. "This device is causing the instability in your crystals. It's not Valith technology." Zorath's luminous eyes narrowed slightly. "Then whose is it?" "That's what we're trying to figure out," Jason admitted. "But one thing's clear, it's sabotage. Someone is deliberately targeting your energy network." For a moment, Zorath was silent, its shimmering form radiating unease. Then it spoke, its tone heavy with concern. "There are factions among my people who oppose our alliance with humans. Some believe that trusting outsiders weakens us. Could this be their doing?" Jason hesitated before answering. "Honestly, I don't think so. This device feels different, too advanced, even for your rebels. Whoever built this knows your systems inside and out, but they're not part of your society." Zorath's gaze hardened. "Then we face a greater threat than internal dissent. If this sabotage comes from beyond our borders, it could mean war." Laura stepped forward, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Look, we can't fix everything overnight, but if you want us to help, you need to trust us completely. No secrets, no holding back. We need access to everything, your records, your networks, anything that might give us clues." Zorath studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well. You shall have unrestricted access. But beware, the rebels will not take kindly to such cooperation. They may see you as a greater threat than the saboteurs themselves." As Zorath departed, leaving the team alone once again, Ryan let out a low whistle. "Unrestricted access sounds great, but did you hear the part about rebels and threats? This just keeps getting better." "Yeah, well, we didn't sign up for easy," Laura shot back, rolling up her sleeves. "Let's focus on what we can control, like figuring out how this stupid thing works." The next few days blurred together in a haze of work and sleepless nights. Jason took apart the disruptor piece by piece, carefully documenting each component. Laura reverse-engineered fragments of damaged conduits, comparing their structures to the patterns embedded in the disruptor's signal. Meanwhile, Ryan delved deeper into the encrypted data, tracing the origins of the interference back to multiple sources scattered across the planet. It's not just one device, Ryan announced one evening, his face pale with exhaustion. There are dozens of these things hidden throughout the city. Each one feeds into the crystal matrix, amplifying the destabilization process. Whoever planted them wanted to make sure the damage spread quickly. Jason rubbed his temples, feeling the beginnings of a headache. So, we're looking at a coordinated attack, not random acts of vandalism. Exactly, Ryan confirmed, and based on the encryption signatures, I'm starting to think this isn't the work of amateurs. These guys are pros. Laura sighed, leaning back against the wall. Great, so now we're up against professional alien saboteurs. Fantastic. Despite the mounting pressure, the team pressed on. Slowly but surely, they began piecing together a clearer picture of the sabotage. The disruptors weren't standalone devices, they were part of a larger network, linked together to create a cascading effect. Once activated, they triggered chain reactions within the Xytherium crystals, unraveling their molecular bonds and spreading chaos across the energy grid. What I don't understand, Jason said during one late-night brainstorming session, is why they're doing this. Destabilizing the crystals doesn't just hurt the Velith, it destroys everything. Why would anyone want that? Maybe it's not about destruction, Laura suggested thoughtfully. Maybe it's about control. Think about it, if you wanted to conquer the Velith, wouldn't you cut off their power first? Make them vulnerable? Ryan nodded slowly. That makes sense. But if that's true, then this isn't the end game, it's just the beginning. Whoever's behind this has bigger plans. The realization sent a chill through the room. They weren't just fighting to save the Velith. They were racing against time to stop a potential invasion. And with each passing hour, the stakes grew higher. Their breakthrough came unexpectedly. While studying the disruptor's signal, Ryan noticed something strange, a faint echo buried deep within the encryption layers. At first, he dismissed it as noise, but when he isolated the pattern, he realized it was a message, a single word, repeated over and over. Adapt. What does that mean? Laura asked, peering over his shoulder at the screen. I don't know, Ryan admitted, frowning. But it's not random. Whoever programmed this wanted us to find it. Jason stood nearby, his mind racing. Adapt. That's what humans do best. Maybe it's a clue or a warning. Before they could speculate further, alarms blared throughout the lab. Red lights flashed overhead, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Outside, shouts echoed in the corridors, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps rushing toward them. The rebels, Laura whispered, grabbing a wrench instinctively. They're here. Jason glanced around the room, assessing their options. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but surrender wasn't an option. Stay sharp, he said firmly. We're not letting them take us down without a fight. Moments later, the door burst open, revealing a group of Velith rebels. Their forms shimmered angrily, their eyes blazing with hostility. One of them stepped forward, addressing Jason directly. You should not interfere in matters that do not concern you, human. Leave while you still can. Jason met the rebel's gaze without flinching. Your world is falling apart because of this sabotage. If you care about your people, you'll let us finish what we started. The rebel hesitated, uncertainty flickering across its luminous features. Before it could respond, however, Zoreth appeared at the doorway, flanked by loyalists. The tension in the room was palpable, a standoff brewing between the two factions. This ends now, Zoreth declared, its voice thunderous. The survival of our empire depends on unity, not division. Stand down, or face the consequences. For a moment, it seemed as though violence would erupt. But then, reluctantly, the rebels lowered their weapons and retreated, disappearing into the shadows as quickly as they had come. When the dust settled, Zoreth turned to Jason and his team. You have proven yourselves worthy of trust. Continue your work, and know that you have allies in this fight." As the alien leader departed, Jason exhaled deeply, realizing how close they'd come to disaster. But there was no time to dwell on what ifs. Turning back to his team, he gestured toward the disruptor. "Let's finish this." With renewed determination, they dove back into their task, knowing that failure wasn't an option, not for the Valeth, and certainly not for humanity. End of document. Document. Part 5. The lab was eerily quiet after the confrontation with the rebels. Jason, Laura, and Ryan sat in tense silence, their minds replaying the events that had unfolded moments before. The rebels' hostility had been palpable, but so had their hesitation when faced with Zorith's authority. It was clear that the Valeth society was fractured, torn between those who believed in cooperation and those who saw outsiders as a threat. For now, the immediate danger had passed, but none of them doubted it would return. "We dodged a bullet there," Laura said finally, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she tightened her grip on the wrench she still held. "Yeah, but for how long?" Ryan muttered, glancing nervously at the door. "Those rebels aren't going to back off forever." Jason leaned against the workbench, his eyes fixed on the disruptor device they'd been analyzing. "They're scared," he said thoughtfully. "Scared of losing control? Scared of change? That makes them unpredictably and dangerous." Laura nodded. "So what do we do? Sit around waiting for them to come back and try to stop us again?" "No," Jason replied firmly. "We keep working. Every second we waste gives whoever's behind this sabotage more time to finish their plan. If we can neutralize these at least figure out where they're coming from, we might be able to turn the tide." Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Easier said than done. Even if we find all the devices, disabling them won't be simple. They're tied into the crystal network. One wrong move, and we could make things worse. Then we'll have to be careful," Jason said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "We've come too far to give up now." The team divided their efforts, each focusing on a different aspect of the problem. Jason took charge of reverse engineering the disruptor, carefully disassembling its components to understand how it interacted with the Zytherium crystals. Laura worked on modifying tools scavenged from the lab, creating makeshift equipment capable of interfacing with alien technology. Meanwhile, Ryan continued analyzing the encrypted signals, searching for patterns that might reveal the locations of other disruptors hidden throughout the city. Hours turned into days, and the pressure mounted. Sleep became a luxury none of them could afford. Their bodies ached from exhaustion, their nerves frayed from constant tension. Yet despite the strain, progress was slow. The disruptor's design defied conventional logic, its mechanisms operating on principles no human engineer had ever encountered. Each breakthrough raised new questions, each answer leading to deeper mysteries. One evening, as Jason pored over schematics late into the night, he noticed something unusual. A small fragment of the disruptor's shard of crystalline material embedded within its core was emitting faint pulses of energy. At first glance, it seemed insignificant, little more than a byproduct of the device's operation. But as Jason examined it more closely, he realized it wasn't part of the original design. It had been added later, almost as an afterthought. "What is this?" he murmured, holding the shard up to the light. Its surface shimmered with an iridescent glow, shifting colors like oil on water. Laura looked up from her workstation, curiosity piqued. "Something new, maybe," Jason replied, handing her the shard. "Take a look at this. Does it match anything you've seen in the conduits?" Laura studied the fragment carefully, turning it over in her fingers. "It's similar to the Zytherium crystals, but not quite the same. There's something off about it." Ryan joined them, peering over Laura's shoulder. "Let me scan it," he said, grabbing a handheld device from his toolkit. He ran the scanner over the shard, frowning as data streamed across the screen. "This isn't natural. It's synthetic, but not based on Valeth tech. So, whoever built the disruptors used fake crystals to mess with the real ones, Laura guessed. Exactly, Ryan confirmed. These shards are designed to mimic the properties of Xytherium, but they're unstable. When introduced into the system, they create interference, destabilizing the entire network. Jason's mind raced. That means the saboteurs didn't just plant disruptors. They seeded the crystals themselves with these fake fragments. No wonder the damage spread so quickly. Laura groaned, rubbing her temples. Great. So even if we disable the disruptors, the fake crystals are still out there wreaking havoc. And we have no way of knowing how many there are, Ryan added grimly. For all we know, the entire network could be contaminated. The weight of the revelation settled heavily on the group. Fixing the problem suddenly seemed impossible, not just difficult, but insurmountable. How could they possibly track down every single fake crystal scattered across an entire planet? Jason stood silently for a moment, his thoughts swirling. Then, slowly, an idea began to form. What if we don't need to remove the fake crystals? He said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. What if we stabilize them instead? Laura blinked, caught off guard. Stabilize them? How? Think about it, Jason explained, pacing as he spoke. The fake crystals are unstable because they're synthetic copies. But if we can adapt our own technology, our magnetic resonance systems, for example, we might be able to counteract their effects. We could recalibrate the network to recognize the fake crystals as harmless, effectively neutralizing them. Ryan frowned, skeptical. That's a big if. Our tech wasn't designed for something like this. Even if we modify it, there's no guarantee it'll work. It's worth a shot, Jason insisted. If we can pull it off, we won't need to find every single fake crystal. We can fix the network from the inside out. Laura hesitated, then nodded slowly. All right, but we're going to need help. This kind of project is too big for just the three of us. The next morning, Jason approached Zorith with their plan. The alien leader listened intently, its luminous eyes never leaving him as he explained the concept of stabilizing the fake crystals using Earth's magnetic resonance technology. When Jason finished, Zorith remained silent for a long moment, seemingly lost in thought. This is a bold idea, Zorith said finally, but it carries great risk. If your calculations are incorrect, the consequences could be catastrophic. No, Jason admitted, but we're running out of options. If we don't try something soon, the entire system will collapse. Zorath studied him carefully, as if weighing his resolve. Finally, it nodded. Very well. I will provide whatever resources you require. My engineers will assist you in adapting your technology to interface with ours. Over the next several days, the team worked alongside Valith engineers, combining human ingenuity with alien expertise. The process was grueling, filled with setbacks and arguments, as two vastly different approaches clashed. But gradually, progress began to take shape. Using modified Earth-based equipment, they developed a prototype device capable of generating magnetic fields, strong enough to interact with the Xytherium crystals. Testing the prototype proved challenging. The team set up a controlled environment in the lab, simulating conditions found in the energy conduits. Laura monitored the equipment while Ryan tracked the data, ensuring everything functioned as intended. Jason supervised the operation, his heart pounding as they prepared to activate the device. Ready? He asked, glancing at Laura and Ryan. As ready as we'll ever be, Laura replied, flipping the final switch. The machine hummed to life, emitting a low-frequency pulse that resonated through the chamber. On the monitor, the readings shifted. Dramatically, the fake crystals, once chaotic and unstable, began to stabilize under the influence of the magnetic field. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in the room. It's working, Ryan whispered, his voice tinged with disbelief. The fake crystals are responding. Jason allowed himself a small smile, though caution tempered his relief. This is just the beginning. We still need to scale this up for the entire network. Despite the success of the test, challenges remained. Scaling the prototype to cover the vast expanse of the Valeth homeworld would require significant research, time they didn't have. Worse, the rebels were growing bolder, launching targeted attacks on key infrastructure in an effort to derail their progress. One night, as the team reviewed their plans, Jason noticed shadows moving outside the lab window. His instincts screamed, "Danger! We're not alone," he said quietly, gesturing for Laura and Ryan to stay low. Seconds later, the door burst open, and a group of rebels stormed in. This time, they weren't content with warnings or threats. They attacked without hesitation, their telekinetic powers sending equipment flying and shattering glass. "Get down," Jason shouted, diving behind a workbench as debris rained down. Laura grabbed a piece of metal piping, wielding it like a weapon. "Not today, jerks." Ryan scrambled to protect the prototype, shielding it with his body. "We can't let them destroy it." Through sheer determination, a bit of luck, the team managed to hold their ground until reinforcements arrived. Zoreth and its loyalists drove the rebels back, but the damage was done. Equipment lay broken, and tensions simmered dangerously, close to boiling over. As the dust settled, Jason surveyed the wreckage, his jaw clenched with frustration. "They're not going to stop," he said grimly. "If we want to finish this, we'll have to do it fast and smart." Laura nodded, her expression resolute. "Then let's get to work." With renewed urgency, T. Document. Part 6. The aftermath of the rebel attack left the lab in shambles. Equipment lay scattered across the floor, some pieces beyond repair. The prototype device, fragile and delicate after days of painstaking work, had survived, but only barely. Ryan cradled it protectively, his face pale with exhaustion and stress. Laura surveyed the damage, her jaw tight as she kicked aside a piece of broken machinery. Jason stood near the window, his arms crossed, staring out at the darkened cityscape. The rebels' message was clear. They weren't just going to stand by and let humans interfere. "We can't stay here," Jason said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was calm but firm. "This place isn't safe anymore." Laura turned to him sharply. "Where are we supposed to go? Back to Delta 7? We don't have time for that." "No," Jason replied, shaking his head. "We need somewhere hidden. Somewhere the rebels won't think to look." Ryan looked up from the prototype, his brow furrowed. "You mean, abandon the lab? Leave Zoreth's people behind?" "Not permanently," Jason clarified. "But if we're going to finish this, we need breathing room, a secure location where we can focus without worrying about being attacked every 5 minutes. Laura sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Fine, but how do we even find a place like that on an alien planet? It's not like we can just rent a garage or something." Jason glanced at Zorath, who had remained quietly in the corner during the cleanup. "Commander," he began, stepping closer, "is there anywhere we could relocate temporarily? Somewhere off the grid?" Zorath's luminous eyes narrowed slightly, considering the request. "There is an abandoned facility on the outskirts of the capital," it replied after a moment. "It was once used for research, but has been vacant for cycles. Few know of its existence." "That'll work," Jason said quickly. "Can you get us there?" "I will arrange transport," Zorath assured them. "But be warned, the rebels may still find you. My influence does not extend everywhere." Jason nodded grimly. "Understood. Thank you." The journey to the abandoned facility was tense. A small Valeth shuttle carried them through the dimly lit skies, weaving between collapsing structures and flickering beams of energy. Below, the once vibrant city continued to decay, its beauty fading into ruin. As they approached their destination, Jason couldn't help but feel a pang of unease. The facility loomed ahead, a crumbling relic of a bygone era. Its walls were cracked, its windows shattered, and vines of glowing vegetation crept over the entrance like ghostly fingers. "This place looks like it's straight out of a horror movie," Laura muttered under her breath as they disembarked. "It's perfect," Ryan countered, clutching the prototype tightly. "No one's going to come looking for us here." Inside, the facility was eerily quiet. Dust coated every surface, and the air smelled faintly of rust and decay. Flickering holographic displays lined the walls, remnants of experiments long abandoned. Despite its state, the space offered what they needed most: isolation. "All right," Jason said, setting down his toolkit. "Let's get set up. We don't have much time." For the next several hours, the team worked tirelessly to establish a makeshift lab, using salvaged equipment from the shuttle, and whatever functional tools they'd managed to save from the original lab. They pieced together a workspace capable of supporting their efforts. Laura rigged up a generator scavenged from the facility's basement, while Ryan reconnected monitoring systems to track the prototype's performance. Jason focused on refining the magnetic resonance technology, ensuring it could handle the scale required to stabilize the entire crystal network. As night fell, or what passed for night, on the alien world, they gathered around a flickering light source to review their progress. The prototype had survived the move intact, but scaling it up would require precision and creativity. Every calculation mattered. Every adjustment could mean the difference between success and failure. "What's our timeline?" Laura asked, leaning back against the wall. Jason hesitated before answering. "Zoroth says the destabilization is accelerating. If we don't implement the solution within the next few days, the entire network could collapse." "Days," Ryan echoed, his voice tinged with disbelief. "That's barely enough time to test this thing properly." "I know," Jason admitted, "but we don't have a choice. We'll have to trust our calculations and hope for the best." Laura groaned, rubbing her temples. "Hope isn't exactly a solid plan, Jason." "It's all we've got," he shot back, his tone sharper than intended. He softened slightly, adding, "Look, I'm not saying this is easy, but if we stick together and keep pushing, we might actually pull this off." Ryan nodded reluctantly. "All right, let's keep going." The days blurred together in a haze of sleepless nights and relentless work. Progress came in fits and starts, each breakthrough accompanied by new challenges. One morning, as Jason adjusted the prototype's frequency settings, he noticed something strange. The magnetic field generated by the device wasn't behaving as expected. It fluctuated unpredictably, threatening to destabilize rather than stabilize. "What's wrong?" Laura asked, noticing his frown. "The field's unstable," Jason replied, tapping furiously at his tablet. "It's reacting to residual energy in the crystals. If we don't compensate for that, we could make things worse." Ryan leaned over his shoulder, scanning the data. "Can we recalibrate it?" "Maybe," Jason said, his mind racing. "But it'll take time we don't have." Laura stepped forward, her expression determined. "Then we split the tasks. You figure out the recalibration, and Ryan and I will prep the deployment system. We'll cover more ground that way." Jason hesitated, but eventually nodded. "Okay, just be careful. If anything goes wrong, pull back immediately." As Jason worked on stabilizing the magnetic field, Laura and Ryan focused on designing a delivery mechanism capable of dispersing the recalibrated signal across the network. They repurposed old conduits and modified them to carry the magnetic pulse, creating a chain reaction that would spread the stabilization effect throughout the system. Despite their efforts, tension simmered beneath the surface. The weight of responsibility pressed down on them, and tempers flared easily. Arguments erupted over minor details, only to dissolve into apologies moments later. They were stretched thin, their bodies and minds pushed to the limit. One evening, as Laura welded a final connection onto the deployment system, she paused, glancing at Jason and Ryan. "Do you ever wonder what happens if we fail?" she asked softly. Jason looked up from his work, his expression unreadable. I try not to think about it. Ryan shrugged, forcing a weak smile. If we fail, at least we went down swinging. Right. Laura chuckled dryly. Yeah, swinging, wildly in the dark. Their breakthrough came unexpectedly, late one night, as Jason fine-tuned the prototype's final adjustments. The magnetic field stabilized. The readings on the monitor shifted steadily, indicating a consistent output capable of countering the fake crystal's effects. For the first time in days, relief washed over the group. It's ready, Jason announced, his voice tinged with cautious optimism. Now we just need to deploy it. The deployment plan was risky, but straightforward. Using the modified conduits, they would connect the prototype to the central hub of the energy network. From there, the magnetic pulse would propagate outward, stabilizing the fake crystals and restoring balance to the system. The challenge lay in reaching the hub undetected. The rebels were still active, patrolling key locations and sabotaging any attempts to repair the network. We'll have to move fast, Jason said as they prepared to leave the facility. Once we activate the prototype, there's no turning back. Laura slung a toolkit over her shoulder, nodding resolutely. Then let's not screw it up. Ryan double-checked the prototype one last time, his hands trembling slightly. Here goes nothing. Under the cover of darkness, the team made their way toward the central hub. The streets were eerily silent, the usual hum of energy replaced by an oppressive stillness. Shadows moved in the distance, rebels watching, waiting. Every step felt like walking a tightrope. Each sound amplified tenfold. When they reached the hub, Jason knelt beside the main console, connecting the prototype to the conduit system. Ready? He asked, glancing at Laura and Ryan. As ready as we'll ever be, Laura replied, gripping her wrench tightly. Ryan took a deep breath. Do it. With a final adjustment, Jason activated the prototype. The machine hummed to life, emitting a low-frequency pulse that resonated through the chamber. On the monitor, the readings shifted dramatically. The fake crystals began to stabilize, their chaotic signals smoothing out as the magnetic field took effect. For a moment, everything seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, the lights flickered back on. Power surged through the conduits, restoring life to the dying city. Outside, the golden rivers of energy reignited, flowing steadily. Once more. It's working, Ryan whispered, his voice filled with awe. It's actually working. But their celebration was short-lived. The sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, growing louder with each passing second. The rebels had arrived. Get behind me, Jason ordered, standing protectively in front of the prototype. Laura raised her wrench, ready to defend their hard-won victory. Ryan stayed close to the console, ensuring the device remained operational.